Welcome to the Demographics Weatherman video podcast. Scott McDonald brings you the forecast trends you need to know to establish and build your professional practice.
Hello, my name is Scott McDonald and I am the Weatherman. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. As you know, from time to time, roughly once a month, we do a program to help you understand what is going on in the United States and whether you should put a practice or small business in one part of the country or another. We have a theme for each one of these, and today we're going to be talking about the middle class exodus. Now, a lot of people are not aware of this, but the country is in motion right now. A lot of people are moving from one place to another. Now, what makes that important, in fact, may escape you because they don't talk about this in the news. There are four primary reasons why you need to know where the middle class is going, but more importantly, why they're going from one part of the country to another. There are four reasons why this is important for you. First of all, the middle class are the ones who own and start businesses. Second of all, these are the people who are owning and building brand new homes. Now, when we talk about the housing market, it's the middle class that is really driving it. The third fact is middle class people are the ones who have families. They are the big consumers. In fact, of the upper class, middle class, and lower classes, it's the middle class that spends most money and that will determine the economy. And, in other words, the fourth is they're the innovators. This class of people are the ones who start stuff. And therefore, if you want to understand what's going on in the future of the country, where the real potential resides, you got to know what the middle class is doing. Now, as you'll note, the middle class is shrinking. Since 1967, in which the middle class was 53% of the United States, now it makes up, in 2013 at least, only 43%. Now, it's true, some people go to the higher income groups and a significant number of people go to the lower income groups. But the middle class is getting smaller. Now, I want to show you a quick chart which illustrates this. It shows year by year how the middle class has shrunk, is disappearing. And it's not just a perception, it's a reality. So in order to understand this, you have to have those stentorian algorithms that help describe what's really happening and where it's going. Right, Mike?
So what you're saying is, wait, what are you saying?
Okay. Now, you have to understand there are two kinds of middle class people. There are the young, who we might refer to as the singles, the millennials, and they have a very different middle class pattern than people who are older. And we're not going to call them older people, we're going to call them core families or nuclear families. But I think the core is probably a better description of who these people are. Now, a couple of facts about the young. Let's talk about these first. They are tending to move from suburban areas primarily into city centers. They're the big drive for the apartments that are going on in the city centers. They tend to rent. They're avoiding owning at almost all costs. The other thing is they're growing only by immigration and not by birth rate. In fact, these singles are putting off having families and children longer than any other generation that has been so young and single for a long, long time. The other thing is these young, single, middle-class people are looking as hard as they can for work. So their perception is if they go to the urban areas, there's more work for them. Now, remember, their lives revolve around work, not only economically, but socially as well. They are moving into neighborhoods they consider good for their lifestyle. A single lifestyle may mean that they're going to have entertainment close to work. Their apartments are very crowded altogether. But here's the thing you have to understand. These young, single, middle-class people don't spend very much at all. I'm not trying to say they're cheap, they're just very, very thrifty. Now, Michael Barone wrote a book called Shaping Our Nation, in which he talks about how the middle class is acting and reacting, and he talks about both halves, the singles and the core families. He said, ultimately, They're different, and they both have to be tracked. But here's the concern he and others have about these singles. It is after the recovery. There is going to be a financial recovery someday. The question is, are they going to stay in the city centers, or are they going to act like the families and move out to more suburban areas and own homes and condominiums? What will that do to these large employment centers that are in the urban areas? Now let's talk about the core families for a second. These are the people who are moving into new suburbs. A couple of things about them that make them a little different than other middle-class families in previous generations. You see, they want to own a home, but they are looking for affordable homes. They're looking for a mortgage that they think they can make on their incomes. They're not into the idea of investing in real estate because this population and the population just before, that older cohort, they got burned in 2008 and 9 when the housing market went down. Now, another thing that you might want to notice is they're depending not only on immigration, in other words, people moving from other areas to these sites, but they're also growing because of birth rate. And this part of the population has a higher birth rate than almost any other. These young families are where the kids are. Because of this, they often have a higher expenditures. They spend a lot of money. They buy stuff. They also want a reasonable commute. Now, it's true that the singles also want to be close to the city center. So what we're finding is these core families want to have businesses and employment near their homes. They don't want to go any further than maybe 30 minutes in order to get to work. They also are very family friendly. That's what they're looking for. They're looking for a place that will match their lifestyle. Now, something you have to keep in mind. This core group of people considers a lot of parts of the United States are not kid-friendly. They consider the schools to be kind of hostile, and when there's a high crime rate, they're out of there. We also note that they are going home. Now, this is a generalized trend that people don't understand because, again, they don't talk about it in the media. But these young families are moving back to where their grandparents used to live. Many people going back to states they had never considered going to, but that's where the family has been. They are consolidating into core and extended family groups. Now, Michael Barone in his book said that what the American dream is to find a dreamlike place, but also to escape an ugly reality. People in the United States, particularly the middle class, are escaping these cities. And number one is Detroit. It's the poster child for a community that really wanted to get rid of its middle class, particularly its white middle class. Then Cleveland, Buffalo, and upstate New York. Miami has had a significant amount of this as well. So has Chicago and Los Angeles. In other words, what we're seeing in these major urban areas, the middle class, particularly the core families, are leaving these areas. They're leaving behind their communities, and you may think, well, wait a second, they're not losing population. We see these populations are more or less stable. That's true because immigrants are moving into the area, wherever those immigrants are from. But the core middle class population is leaving, and I'll show you a map in a minute to show where they're coming from. Now, we also know that there's a place that they're attracted to. What about Houston or Dallas-Fort Worth? Nashville, Atlanta, and what they call the little Atlantas like Charlotte and Raleigh and Raleigh-Durham, Jacksonville, places that are, by definition, family-friendly. Now you say, what does that family-friendly mean? It means there's a special emphasis upon schools and upon family recreation. But there's also something else. You see, this middle class hates, above everything else, high taxes and expensive housing. So they're looking for places they can get a good return on their investments. Their dollar has to mean something. But there's also a cultural thing that goes along with this that you just have to know. The middle class is feeling like they are the enemy. Nobody wants to be around them. And this goes for people who own businesses, including doctors. Doctors themselves are feeling like they're being targeted by their local municipalities. They have to pay higher and higher wages, more benefits to their employees. Nobody cares if they make any money, right? And taxes. Taxes are very high and perhaps the worst. In a litigious society, it looks like they're a target of people who want to get rich on a court case. So where are they moving? They're moving to these very cities in which it appears that they want them to come. That's been one of those things about the locations that we've talked about. In fact, there's a term that we like to use for this, and it's called cultural congeniality, or they're culturally congenial. That means they're welcome and people want them to be there. Now let me give you a map, and let's talk about what this map means. In other words, where are middle-class families growing and where are they coming from? Well, if you'll look over in eastern Washington and Oregon, that's really where we start. We go over to Idaho, down through Utah, into Arizona, then we take a left and go into Texas and the deep south, Alabama, Mississippi, over to Georgia. This is where the births are going on. Regardless of income, regardless of ethnic background, you want to see where people are being born, that's it. But you see, there's also a fact that a lot of people are hostile toward the middle class. Well, look at these circles here. If you look at the Northwest, and we'll just call that Greater Seattle or San Francisco. If you look over at the Northeast or even at the Midwest in the Greater Chicago area, those are places that they're almost pricing out the middle class. People can't afford to live there anymore, and that's causing a major problem. Now let's look at this map. This map shows the direction in which people are migrating out of the area. For the most part, they're going from the north to the south, but there's a couple of exceptions. One of those, by the way, and a big one, is people are moving from Southern California to Northern California, but they're not staying. For the most part, if you look at the Northwest, people are heading back to the south. A significant amount of growth in Oklahoma and Texas comes from the Northwest. People coming from the middle states like Illinois and Minnesota are heading south. A significant number of people who have come from the Northeast, who've been there for a generation or two, are now heading back south as well, to Georgia, to Florida. And this is a trend which we're seeing continue. Now here's the scary thing about it. The middle class, once it has moved, now we're talking about the core families especially, they don't move back. At least not for a very, very long time. For this reason, if you lose the middle class, you may be in a big trouble for a couple of decades. It is also true, by the way, that if we look at other factors, look at this map, which shows the labor participation rate. Now, the labor participation rate, and you should look for a state that has a 65% labor participation rate, is where there is business going on. The local economy is alive and it's well. That's where we look at Kansas and we look at Missouri. Other states in the Midwest where a lot of percentage of the population has a job, a full-time job. That's what the middle class seems to want. Now, let's also look at one other thing the middle class wants. This map shows the value of $100. If you were given a $100 bill, what would it buy? You'll notice that within different states, there's an amount that's quite different. Perhaps the worst return on your dollar is Washington, D.C., which gets down to about $85. California, New York, they're terrible. New Jersey, you cannot get above $87. However, if you look at other states around the United States, you'll notice the big, big difference. Let me show you a map in nominal dollars just to kind of make the point. If you were to look at New York versus, let's say, Kansas, you will note that New York State, people earn a lot more than the people in Kansas. However, when you convert to what they can buy with that money, Kansas completely outstrips New York. And the impact upon a middle class business or a practice is that you don't have to work as hard to actually bring home a lot of buying potential. You can earn and also keep. Now, I'm going to wrap up with this. The map of the United States is a bit of a warning because I predict that within 5 years, we're going to have serious conflict between the states because the earning potential is going to become greater and greater different. In other words, it'll cost more to live there, it'll cost more to have a job, it will be almost impossible to start a job in many locations. The minimum wage is certainly one of those manifestations, but so are property values and tax rates. It's a problem because at some time they're going to wake up at the 2020 census and realize other states that they thought the residents were superior to have more businesses, far better job employment, and the values of homes. Keep in mind, I'm warning you about the future. Remember, this isn't the weather that changes every day. This is kind of the climate. Now, if you would like me to come out to your organization and do a weather forecast on your industry or your local area demographic character and how things are changing and what's likely to change, contact us on drdemographics.com or call our office at 800-424-6222. I'm Scott McDonald, and thanks so much for watching.
Thanks for watching the Demographics Weatherman. Check us out on drdemographics.com.